Hi everybody, Jane here, and today I'm coming to you with my June 2019 wrap-up. Now, I did a mid-month wrap-up because I knew it was going to be a good reading month, and man was I right. So, not all the books I read are going to appear here. In total, I read 13 books, and I DNF'd 4. 3 are going to be on this video. There was one DNF on the mid-month wrap-up, which is not actually going up until the end of the month because I had kind of a sucky month and it was hard for me to get stuff up when I wanted to. Just saying. So before I get on to those, I am going to mention one thing that I listened to on audiobook, but that I'm not going to be reading because when I got it from the library, I thought it was the book. And it turns out it was the production, and I didn't really get that until later. And that is The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie. So I ended up listening to a BBC production of this, and they say it's an audiobook. It's not really an audiobook, it's a performance as far as I could tell. So I did order the actual audio book to listen to, but I now know the story and I'm curious if reading the actual book will change how I felt about this. So for the production, this version of it, it was a 3 out of 5 for me. It wasn't anything exciting. I didn't love it. I was actually kind of disappointed in it. But I'm going to read the actual whole thing and see if I feel differently or if it's just the story itself that just wasn't working for me. So I did want to mention that. I'm not going to be rating it on Goodreads yet until I get the actual audio book. So I'm going to start by going through my DNFs for the month. The first DNF was a Kindle read, and it was called Loved Ones Lost. And it is a family tragedy book. So this woman, her husband dies, and shortly afterwards, her teenage son committed suicide. And that was as far as I got in the book, and I decided that it wasn't for me. I assume that more comes of these tragedies. There's a family curse of some kind. But as I said, I didn't get that far in the book. Her husband died, her kid killed himself, and I was good. I am kind of sensitive to suicide content because I lost a family member that way. But it wasn't that it was upsetting as well as I didn't necessarily think it was very well done. And the narration of the book itself, stylistically, just wasn't for me. As a matter of fact, like most of the books I had an issue with this month that I DNF'd just weren't for me. There wasn't anything wrong with them. It was just a miss. So, Loved Ones Lost, there was a little bit more telling than showing than I like, and it just wasn't doing it for me. So, I didn't get very far. I got maybe 10-15% into the book. Wasn't very far. Wasn't for me. If you like family drama and tragedy and things like that, maybe pick it up. Maybe at least look and see if you're interested in the synopsis. Wasn't for me. The next book I DNF'd, and I was really kind of bummed about this. Actually, the next 2 ones I DNF'd I was bummed about, but this one I'd been anticipating. I'd heard great things, so I was really sad that I DNF'd it. This is The Farm, and it is about a girl who, I believe her name is Jane. My name. So, Jane is poor, and she goes to work as a nanny for this wealthy family because the nanny who was living there and who shares a boarding house, living space of some kind with her, is ill and not able to do it. So she is, at least for now, gonna go watch this rich family's kids, and based on the synopsis, I didn't get beyond the babysitting the kids thing, but based on the synopsis, I assume she's going to at some point go and start having babies for rich families, maybe. So this book, it just had a really slow start for me, and I wasn't caring. I wasn't interested, and the style just didn't work. I really was expecting like Handmaid's Tale-ish thing, and I didn't get that at all. So I probably wanted something different from the book than it had to offer. I'm pretty sure that this book is just poor people having babies for rich people. And I wasn't invested. It wasn't for me. So that was The Farm. I can't say it was a bad book. Like I said, stylistically, not for me. Maybe it's for you. If you've read it, I hear a lot about it right now. So if you've read it, I would love to know what you thought about it. Did you also think it was kind of a slow start? And I wasn't feeling it. And I didn't get very far. I got probably 4 or 5 chapters in. And I was like, nah, I'm good. The next book. Okay. This is not the fault of the book. This is the fault of my expectations for the book. And that is Accept the Dying. I did not get very far into this either. I got about 40 pages in. And I realized it wasn't what I wanted. So really briefly, I have started binge watching a series called The Murdoch Mysteries. And I'm going to be doing a review on them too. So this is a series. It is amazing and I love it. And it is based on a series of books. So naturally, I went and got book 1. And there is probably nothing wrong with this, except that I wanted more of that, and the book is very different than the movie. And this is actually the 3rd time this has happened to me with mysteries, so I probably just need to stop getting books that are mysteries based on TV series I love. Because I had the same problem with Bones. I really didn't like the Bones book, but I love the Bones series on TV. I kind of had that issue with Rizzoli and Isles. I didn't hate Rizzoli and Isles books. They were okay. I read several of them, but I was kind of meh. I didn't like them as much as the show. And that was kind of what happened with this. This isn't a bad book. I didn't love it. It was just okay. So it is a mystery that takes place in the late 1800s. There is, a woman who died, and Detective Murdoch goes and investigates it. And that's really all that happened. The language in it was kind of weird. It takes place in Canada, and I have a feeling they used a little more language appropriate to the time and the place than in the show, because there were times I was kind of lost by what the dialogue, like what were they saying. Yeah, it didn't have the things that I loved about the show. So if you like historical mysteries and you've never watched the show, maybe give it a try. Maybe if you don't have the show expectations, it's fine. But if you're wanting like the show, but in book form, it just is not the same. It doesn't even give the same vibes. Like, all the stuff I loved about the show wasn't happening in the book. So, pretty disappointed. Okay, so let's continue on. These are my 3 stars of the month. 3-star number 1, Neverwhere. This is my pick this month for the book from my shelf. If you guys don't know, if you're new to my channel, one of my goals every month is to read a book from my shelf. Most of these, as you'll see, are library books. This one's not. It came from my shelf. Happy about that. And I am going to be unhauling it once I'm done. My brother had actually asked about it, which is why I decided to read it in the first place. So, briefly, this is about a guy named Richard who meets this girl who's obviously in distress, and her name is Dwyer, and their encounter's kind of weird. Because of the encounter, his girlfriend breaks up with him. His life completely gets messed up, including suddenly people can't see him. So as he's trying to at least be able to be seen again, he goes into this place called London Underground, which is kind of a magical world. It has some similarities to regular London, but it's not quite regular London. So he goes and finds this girl, Dwyer, and assassins are trying to kill her. They have murdered her family, and she's on the run from them and trying to get help. I can't really say any more without too much in the way of spoilers. I didn't love it. There were some really brilliant moments. One thing I love about Neil Gaiman is he can do really brilliant, fun, cool things. There's a character in here, for instance, named the Marquis of Carabas, which I believe is from the Puss in Boots story. And it's like a fake name that Puss in Boots gives himself, and the Marquis like makes some comments about basically being a non-person or something. It's something that was one of those, hey, that's really cool. And I love that Neil Gaiman does that. He does that in a lot of his books. So that was something I was already familiar with and I was excited about. I will say, I haven't read a ton of Neil Gaiman for a long time. I read my first Neil Gaiman book in 2006, and I read American Gods, The Anansi Boys, Good Omens for the first time, and I loved all of those. Good Omens became one of my favorites, and I have reread that several times, but I haven't reread the others. So I don't know if maybe I've just not... Maybe Neil Gaiman is no longer the author for me. Maybe I'm just not clicking with his writing like I used to. Or maybe this book just didn't work. I probably need to read a few more Neil Gaimans to decide, because I did love his Graveyard book, and I did read that recently, but that's a kid's book. Anyway, I can't really tell you what wasn't clicking because I'm not sure. I'm going to probably do a review about this and kind of give you some of my thoughts about maybe what wasn't working. But there was some good moments. There was some cool stuff. I just found I didn't really care. And that's not a great way to feel about a fantasy. All right, the next book that I gave a 3 out of 5 was a graphic novel called Fun Home. This is a fairly complex story about a woman who is a lesbian. And when she comes out, she learns that her father was gay, but living life as a straight man so that people didn't know, but I mean, he had a boyfriend on the side, things like that. I love the themes explored. I thought this was an important book. And there was a lot of really cool stuff in this book. But it just wasn't working for me. I don't know if this is going to make sense, but it felt kind of literary. And I didn't feel like I could connect with the character. I believe this is based maybe on a true story. It's a graphic memoir. So it's based on a true story. It's based on this person's life. And I just had trouble connecting. There was maybe too much distance in it. Also, just a warning. You know, I take my books to work because sometimes in the late hours of the night, there's not a lot to do. So I read because I'm allowed to do that while I wait for the phone to ring. Maybe not a book to take to work. There's some nudity in this book, and I was not prepared for that. So, just so you know, if you are interested in the content, give it a try, because it was interesting. I just wasn't really feeling connected to the characters. The next 3-star read was Murder at Morrington Hall. This is a Stella and Lindy mystery. Lindy is the son of an aristocratic guy who is broke. He's wasted the family fortune and he needs money. So he arranges for Stella, who is an American heiress, to come and marry his son. Except that Stella doesn't really know that this is going on until they're already there. After they arrive, or possibly before, the vicar is murdered, who is supposed to be performing the marriage ceremony. So then Stella and Lindy spend the whole book trying to figure out what happened to the vicar. Did do a full review on this that I will be posting soon, so I'm not going to go into terrible detail about what didn't work, but I think my biggest complaint is just that this book doesn't really seem to know whether it's a romance or a mystery. And I like romance in my cozy mystery, but I like it more in the background, whereas this feels in a lot of places like a romance novel, and that's not really what I signed up for, but it's also not quite a romance novel. It's a mystery and romance with a lot of heavy romance. I should say it's a clean romance. It's not like smexy times. But it is very there was a little bit more of that and a lot less mystery, and that's not what I thought I was getting into, and I didn't really love that. I didn't think it was well balanced. Now, I do want to try more from the series, because presumably the next books in the series will not be so romance heavy. If you like the Gaslight Mystery series, maybe give this one a try. Because it is that historical time frame. Oh, excuse me, which is nice. There were some things that I did like and that worked for me. It was okay. It just wasn't great. But I do think I will probably try more that are like this because I do like historical mysteries, and I hope once the romance is kind of out of the way and we can focus more on the mystery, that I'll have a better time. So, meh. It was okay, not great. My next 3-star read, and this is the last one, but there were quite a few of them this month. I listened to the audiobook version of Closed Casket. Now, this is actually by Sophia Hannah, but it is a Hercule Poirot mystery. So my understanding is that the Agatha Christie estate allowed Sophie Hannah to kind of continue Hercule Poirot's stories. And so this is not an authentic Agatha Christie. I loved some things about this book, and I hated some things about this book. I love the characters. I thought they were hilarious. I thought Hercule Poirot was wonderfully interesting. Now, I will tell you, I haven't read a whole lot of Agatha Christie's, which is one of the reasons that I did start The Mysterious Affair at Styles, which I mentioned earlier, that I had listened to that and was like, okay, I really am curious now. I want to read some more Agatha Christie. I'd read a few growing up. Want to get back into it. But anyway, so this did inspire me to read more Agatha Christie, which is a good thing, but this book, beyond the fun characters, the actual mystery annoyed the crap out of me. So I guess I should back up. Hercule Poirot and Edward Catchpole. Edward Catchpole and him apparently worked together on another case in this series. Edward is with Scotland Yard, and Hercule Poirot, of course, is a private investigator. And they get called to this house of Lady Playford, and she is a mystery writer. So they think they're going to be asked questions about solving mysteries, because why else would they be invited to this place? But that's not quite what happens. So at dinner, she announces that she has changed her will. She is leaving everything to her secretary, even though she has 2 children, a son and a daughter. So she's leaving everything to the secretary, and the secretary, on top of it, is very ill. So he's not expected to live more than another couple months. So nobody understands, why are you leaving everything to the secretary instead of to your children? Strange, I know. So then the secretary is murdered because, the will. And Hercule and Edward Catchpole have to figure out who done it. I was engaged until they started doing reveals. Once the reveal started happening about halfway through, about disc 5, I think it was, there are 9 discs. Disc 5 is when I started to get annoyed. The reveal started to really irritate me. And I was like, okay, this is really, I just didn't like it. It didn't work. And then the person who did it was somebody I actually really liked, and I thought they were too obvious, maybe, I don't know. And again, I haven't read a lot of Agatha Christie, so it is quite possible that she borrowed Christie's formula really well, and that this is a great shout out to Christie. I don't know. I just know that this didn't work for me, and I'm a little worried about whether other Christies will work for me, because I've read And Then There Were None and Murder on the Orient Express, which I have my own issues with those 2 books, mostly that they're very similar. But I'm hoping that I like other of Christie's books as much as I liked And Then There Were None. I liked Murder on the Orient Express. I just thought it was too similar to And Then There Were None, which I'd read a long time ago. And I was not a fan of the Mysterious Affair at Styles, the production. So we'll see if I like the book. But this book, Closed Casket, really ticked me off with the way they did the mystery. So, and the ending didn't work for me. Like, not only the reveal, but what happened afterwards, the justice afterwards. I was not okay with it. And this just, no. I did do a full review, including a section, I believe, with some spoilers, maybe. So if you want more information, I will be putting that, I've already put that review up. That review's already up. So, I will link it below if you want more details about this, but this book really ticked me off. All right, so that was the end of my 3-star reads. I didn't have any 5 stars this month, but everything else is a 4-star, so looking up, not bad. This one, nonfiction, true stories of Law and Order, the real crimes behind the best episodes of the hit TV show. Love mysteries, love Law and Order. This is entertaining, it's well written, it's fun, and it's basically like, here's an episode, here's what they did in the episode. Like, it gives you a brief little description, it doesn't get into too much detail. Here is the crime that it was likely based off of, and all the crap that happened with it, and this is really cool. And there are little bits of information, too, at the bottom. So, like, the squeeze is about the way, like, rules that detectives have to follow, whether they could put the squeeze on people. It says, say Detective Briscoe approaches a drug dealer who he just knows has information valuable to his case. The scene will usually play out like this. Briscoe asks a question and the dealer plays dumb. So Briscoe comes up with an excuse to frisk the dealer. He finds a bag of cocaine and says something to his partner like, what do you know, our friend here was just about to powder his nose. The cuffs come out, the dealer gets the message and spills his guts. It's called the squeeze, and it's illegal. According to procedure, the detectives are supposed to arrest the person on the spot and bring him to a DA who will work out a plea for information deal. Only the DA's office has the authority to put the squeeze on. So, like, that's, like, cool tidbits of information about, you know, what they kind of don't do right in the show, or what they do in some cases. I love this. It was very interesting. Obviously, some cases are better than others, but for a nonfiction, this was so fun. It was not dry. I had a good time with it. Would recommend. If you love Law and Order and are interested in true crime, this is it. It was good. Next book, Eliza and Her Monsters. And I gave this also a 4 out of 5. So this is a book about a girl named Eliza who makes a comic. And nobody knows that she is the creator of this comic that is very popular. At school, she meets a boy who is a fan of the comic. She doesn't tell him that she is the creator of the comic, but she kind of starts falling in love with him. Ultimately, it is revealed that she's the one that made the comic, and he's a little upset because she lied to him. And there's other repercussions, but it was good. I really enjoyed so many aspects of this book. There were some things that didn't work for me, though. And one of them, I felt like the reveal of who she is to everybody, it's mentioned on the blurb. And I felt like that shouldn't have been on the blurb because it happened so far into the back of the book that I was just like, we know this is going to happen. We know this is going to happen. And I guess, I mean, that is the plot of the book, more or less, so I kind of get it, but I don't know. I was really annoyed that I knew that going on and it happened so late in the book. Yeah, so that I didn't love. There was also some mental health stuff in here that I wasn't a fan of. Some trigger warnings in this book, just FYI. Trigger warnings for suicide and mental health. So overall, though, I did enjoy this book. It was so much fun. It was a YA. I loved the magicalness of, you know, of her as a creator. I related to her as a creator myself. I really enjoyed, you know, kind of her struggle and how she used her creations and how much she loved them and why. I love the dynamic she had with her brothers. She's got 2 brothers, and their relationship was really interesting, and it was complex, and I liked that. One thing that I was a little bit disappointed in was we get a lot of drawings of her comics and bits from her comics, like this. And I just wasn't as in love with that part of the book as I wanted to be. Like, I wanted to really love her work and appreciate her as an artist and creator. And I really wasn't that interested in her creation. I was interested in her as a creator. So that was kind of a little bit disappointing that I didn't love that part of the book a little bit more. And like I said, some of the mental health stuff I wasn't a big fan of. I felt they gave away too much on the cover. The relationships were great. The dialogue a lot of times was fun. Overall, really enjoyed this book. Would recommend. Especially if you're a creator, because I think you could really relate to the things in the book. The last two things I have that were 4 out of 5s were graphic novels. The first one is Chainmail Bikini. And this is kind of an anthology of different things about being a female gamer. And it looks into all kinds of things, including there's, a character who is non-binary and how games allow them to express that, and how games have not always been great for those who are non-binary and or those who are gay, lesbian, not cis and straight. Sometimes they don't have the representation. So there is some commentary about that. This is not just video games, by the way. This is, collectible card games, Magic the Gathering. This is Dungeons and Dragons. This is all the games. All the games. I did have 3 favorites. And the reason I gave this 4 out of 5 instead of 5 out of 5 is there were some in here that were 5 out of 5 that I just loved. And there were some that were not. Some I didn't really get. And I think that happens with the anthologies for me. You're going to have some duds. But overall, I really enjoyed this. But I did want to talk about a couple of the ones that I really loved. So, there's one in here called Pocket World. And it talks about, how sometimes we lack control in the real world. And it's so nice to be able to go into, video game worlds and have the control and express ourselves in ways that we can't in this controlled game environment. And I love that, this looks awful lot like Pokemon. This is, I assume, Zelda. I assume this is supposed to be Animal Farm, but it made me think of, or Animal Crossing, I'm sorry. It made me think of Stardew Valley, which I'm a huge fan of. So I was all excited about this. And of course, I had a Tamagotchi as a kid, just so many memories and feelings, and I really love that story. And I also totally could relate to the being able to live another life and express your creativity through video games. Because I'm a huge gamer, I love gaming. It was so nice to see, almost a why. The next one I really liked was called Connections. And it says, "Are you feeling all right? I guess so. I'm sad and I'm tired for reasons that I can't really pin down. The older I get, the worse I feel. That's a natural reaction to the complexities of life." So we have some, I've been there. Adulthood sucks sometimes. Our car broke down this week and I didn't know if we'd have money to fix it. And we've had all kinds of personal stuff going on. And it's just, adult life is hard. As they talk about how video games are a great escape. You can go in there and you can be in control and have a concrete set of goals. So it's better to be occupied with sweet and silly things, to have a concrete set of goals in mind, and to have, let us cheer you on, let us support you, let us keep your story moving, let us be your champions. And that connection that you may not feel in your everyday life, to have goals, to be able to conquer things when your own life is spiraling out of control. So I loved how moving that was. And also, this is the last page of it, let us keep you company and all the cute little critters. And I related to this so much because, especially when I was in the depths of depression and anxiety, playing games really helped me occupy my mind, and it helped me to kind of deal with things. So games are important to me, and I love the representation of that. The last thing, and I probably should have just done a review video on this book, but I don't usually do that for graphic novels. Anyway, then the last one I really loved was Achievement Unlocked. And this is about the stigma against girl gamers. And I think that is happening less I think you're seeing more and more. I'll show you the cover one more time in case anybody wanted to write this down. I definitely recommend it. If you are a gamer, you'll appreciate it probably if you're a female gamer. But it's about the stigma against female gamers, and also some of, I don't remember if it was that one, but there were some touches on the misogyny in gaming sometimes, and how it's not always a comfortable, safe place for females, and sometimes there's female exploitation in games that we don't appreciate. But, you know, also that feeling like guys don't think girls are gamers a lot of the times, or, you know, if you're a gamer but not playing the games they are, you're not a serious gamer. It's like, yeah, I may not play what you play, but I still play video games, and that makes me a gamer. You know, my boyfriend, he plays a lot of things like Final Fantasy. He's really into RPGs, where I'm into more sandboxy games. I love Sims. I love Stardew Valley. I love things like that. I do play some of the other games, but I like things where it's strategy. I like to think about things. Like, we just tried Overcooked. Love it. Amazing. In love. We beat it together. I loved it more than he did. He found it frustrating because it's like a puzzly game. I loved it. But anyway, so as a female gamer, I loved most of the stuff in this, and I think it is worth reading if you are also a female gamer. And the last one, that was a 4 out of 5 for me, is really cute. It is called The Tea Dragon Society. And basically, there are these things called tea dragons, and I believe in the back here there is an encyclopedia of tea dragons. And they grow special tea leaves out of their heads. And this is about the people who, this girl here, she meets the people who care for tea dragons. And they teach her about tea dragons, and they help her become a carer of tea dragons. And this is just so cute and so sweet, and there's so much representation in this, which I think is great. You have, obviously, different races. You have a character who is in a wheelchair. You have the mom the little girl's mom, who is a blacksmith, so a very non-traditional female job. Let's see if I can find her dad. And her dad is not like a super masculine, like, tough guy. He looks, I've got to find him. He's got long hair. I mean, and not that he's, yeah. That's her dad. So, you know, it's very nice. It's very, so many people are shown. It's beautiful images. I love the dragons. This is just cute. It is appropriate for children. I want to read it to mine. I'm not saying it's an amazing, amazing work of literature. I just happen to love it. And I'm wrong. I have one more book after this. I forgot about my Kindle read for the month. Glad I remembered, because I was about to forget that, because I thought, I'm missing something. This video is already 35 minutes long. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Okay, so Tea Dragon Society, cute, sweet, fine for older kids. Lots of good representation, and just adorable. I had a good time. Not very long. Worth the read. The last book that I read this month was Time Traveler's Guide to Modern Romance. And I am going to do a full video on that one, I'm pretty sure. It was a 4 out of 5 for me. It was my Kindle read for the month. And I gave it a 4 because I really, really enjoyed it. But it was probably a 3 if I was looking as a reviewer at structure and things like that. I loved the characters. I loved the dialogue. I loved so many things about the situation. So I guess I should back up. You have Elias. Call him Eli through a lot of it. Elias is in the 1800s, and he does not feel like he fits in. And he doesn't. He is a gay man. And he's, I think, 17. he doesn't fit in, and he struggles socially, and he just doesn't feel very connected to other people. His parents get really frustrated with him for some of his behavior, and when we first meet him, he has just ruined basically his only friend's painting by spilling wine on it. So his friend is a painter, a painter who's going places, and this is a masterpiece, and he did like an unveiling, and they have a party, and Elias spills wine all over this and upsets his parents, who are like, you are going to reformatory school because we are tired of your crap and your bad behavior, and his friend's mad at him, and just all kinds of bad things. So anyway, his grandpa pulls him aside. I don't remember exactly how that happened, but at some point his grandpa's like, hey, I have this magical watch thing, and it'll transport you to different times and different places. It's like a time travel watch. You just have to like hold it and think about where you want to go. Well, he doesn't know where he wants to go. He just knows he doesn't want to be there. So he gets transported to America, modern day, and meets this guy named Tyler, who is a film student. Well, he I believe, and this confused me a little bit, and again, with some of the stuff that didn't necessarily work for me, he's at a boarding school. His father has died, his stepmom has him at boarding school, and he wants to get into film school. But I was really kind of confused whether he was in high school or college, because like through the book, I'm pretty sure they said he's in high school, but it feels like he's in college. So anyway, so Elias shows up. Tyler gets his appearance on film. Tyler, by the way, is bisexual. So they start hanging out. Tyler starts showing Elias, who he calls Eli, around his world, introduces him to his friends, all kinds of fun stuff. They have a good time. They fall in love. And then there is some, but how does this affect Elias's family? How are we going to handle this? You know, bad things happen because those poor people, they have a missing child that they don't know what happened to. So anyway, long story short, that's like just the plot, like obviously when you mess with time. The time travel element, I loved that he came from the past. I didn't necessarily love some of the time travel stuff, like how easy it is for him to travel around with this watch. I mean, it's hard because he's like, it's hard to get where you need to go necessarily and to be really specific with the watch sometimes. But in general, he basically has a time machine. He can kind of jump around. So some of the plot things did not work very well because of the time travel element in the story. And so I didn't like that. As I said, I got confused a lot of the times whether these kids were in high school or college because it seemed like they were in college, but I think they said they were in high school. Another thing is that something happens that is an accident, but it was really strange how it happened, and it was kind of set up to make you think that Tyler's friend did something to hurt Elias, and to hurt Tyler too, honestly. But then he's like, oh no, I didn't. It was a complete accident. It wasn't my fault. But he was acting all shady when it happened, so I don't know. The fact that they made it like suddenly not his fault kind of bothered me. I almost would have rather it been his fault. Anyway, overall, I really had a good time. I really enjoyed this book. I highly recommend it. Oh, and I will tell you, because I know for some people like me, this is a big deal. It was not hot and steamy and sweaty. And you may want that and you may not. I prefer sweet romance usually. I can handle a little bit of smexy time, but I don't want anything graphic. Like, I don't need pages upon pages upon pages of people touching each other. I don't need none of that. Too old for that crap. Anyway, so it is a very light as far as sensuality. There's some kissing, and I think that's it. It was fun. I had a good time with it. I recommend it. But the plot maybe wasn't all it could have been. But I had a good time, so I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 stars anyway. Maybe it doesn't deserve it, except I enjoyed it, so it's getting it. Alright guys, this has been long. I'm glad I did do a mid-month wrap-up, otherwise it would have been even longer. So, what have you read? Have you read any of the books I read? If so, do you agree with what I thought of them? Do you feel like you had a different opinion? Love to hear about it. Also, my social media is going to be below. If you have not yet liked and not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so. Also, if you'd like to give me a like, I appreciate those. It helps me be more findable on YouTube. All right, guys, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.